Senator, nice to see you, sir.
Thank you.
What's going to happen, do you think, to the Iran nuclear deal in the Congress?
I think the status quo is unacceptable. And you got to understand that President Trump ran on the idea this was a bad deal for the world. And I think it is, and let me tell you why. Under the deal, after the passage of 15 years, the Iranians can enrich and reprocess no matter how they're behaving. And I think the Arabs are going to see it's inevitable that the Iranians get a nuclear weapon, and they're going to get one, buy one, or build one, and you got a nuclear arms race. So here's a better deal. The Iranians can continue to enrich and reprocess in a limited fashion. They can have a peaceful nuclear power program. When it comes to inspections, they can't deny the IAEA access to their military bases. If they continue to build ICBMs with death to Israel on the side, then no deal. The sunset clause needs to change. We need to monitor their program until their behavior changes. They can't continue to be the largest state sponsor of terrorism. So here's what I think the Congress will do. The Congress will look at adding new conditions on the domestic Iranian deal. We're going to say that if you continue to develop ICBMs in violation of UN resolutions, we're going to reimpose sanctions. If you deny inspectors access to sites that they want to visit, then we're going to reimpose sanctions. And oh, by the way, 15 years from now, if you're still the largest state sponsor of terrorism, we're going to keep inspections in place.
All right. How do you get past the hurdle that, that this was our word, that this was our agreement? The president doesn't say that they have violated the agreement, but this was an agreement made by the foreign administration, President Obama, and of course Europe is upset, and even our own cabinet, the president's own cabinet says it's a deal that they haven't violated.
This is an executive agreement, not a treaty. I said, let's try to make this a treaty. They said not, because a treaty is binding on the next administration. This was a deal done with President Obama and John Kerry with the international community and the Iranians. I thought it was a lousy deal. I think it's one of the worst deals I've ever seen, and President Trump has every right to change it or tear it up, and I'm glad he didn't tear it up. He says, I can't certify that the benefits to Iran are worth what we're getting. Look what's happened since this deal. They've hijacked our sailors on the high seas and humiliated them. They're violating the UN restriction on ICBM development. They're building missiles with death to Israel on the side of it. They're still the largest state sponsor of terrorism. They're sending weapons to the Houthis in Yemen in violation of international law. They chant death to Israel, death to America continuously. So they've not gotten better. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work with Senator Corker and Cotton to put new conditions domestically on the Iranian legislation, forward-looking. If you continue to develop missiles, we're going to sanction you. That was never part of the nuclear deal. The dumbest thing Obama did. Go ahead.
Well, it means that every deal the United States enters into, if you're Kim Jong-un worried about some deal, if you're going to negotiate something about their nuclear weapon programs, it better be a treaty, or else any sort of agreement from the United States really is only as good as the president is in office.
Yeah, that's true, because one president can't bind another. We have elections for a reason. What was this election about? A lot of things, including Iran. This president said, I think this is a lousy deal, I'm going to tear it up, and he won.
That's good for the U.S. audience. I mean, the American people, they get that. It's not a treaty. It's not a treaty. It was an agreement. But the people in Iran who thought that it was something else, or even the fact that the hardliners...
I got zero sympathy for the Iranian government.
Not the government, but the people in Iran.
Yeah, but the people in Iran could be our allies one day. They're the ones killed by their own government, by the way. They're the ones who went into the streets objecting to rigged elections and shot down like dogs. So here's what I'm saying. I'm saying the Iranian deal needs to be replaced. It was dumb, stupid to begin with, and I'm glad we're trying to get a better deal. Now, I'm willing to accept a better deal. I'm not willing to accept the status quo.
All right. Do you think any deal is going to be made in Congress? Do you think Congress is actually going to do something?
Maybe.
Because the way the president has done is the president says to Congress, okay, this is a lousy deal. I ran out, it's a lousy deal. Now you fix it.
Okay.
And is Congress going to do anything?
Here's what I think we might do. Two things. We may say that, okay, in the future, your ICBM program is going to be part of the deal. From our point of view, we're going to reimpose sanctions if you continue to develop ICBMs in violation of UN resolutions. If you continue to be the largest state sponsor of terrorism, we're going to sanction you. If you deny inspectors access to sites they say they need, not us, but them, then we're going to sanction you. That's domestic policy. That's the outline of a better deal for the world. And you talk about people being upset, go to the Israelis. Ask them about this deal. Go to the Arabs and see how they think this deal is working. So I think Congress could do that, but we need 60 votes. And to my Democratic friends, I'm willing to get a better deal. I'm not willing to accept the status quo. And if we can't get 60 votes for what I just outlined, then under the law, the Senate Majority Leader can bring a vote to the floor of the Senate to reimpose sanctions. And I will insist that we have that vote. The status quo cannot continue.
All right. Do you agree that they have not violated this agreement?
I don't know. I don't know if they've, some people say they, I would say this, that the whole agreement was designed to make them better people, to bring them into the family of nations. I would say since this deal, they've gotten worse. They've taken the $150 billion in sanctions relief, built up their military. They're toppling 4 Arab capitals. Assad couldn't last for 15 minutes without the Iranians. They've been provocative toward us, toward our allies in Israel. They're violating ICBM restrictions. They're trying to build a bigger military with the money. So I think this deal was bad. They've proven that they really don't want to be a member of the family of nations. And now's the time to stop them before it's too late.
What do you think that the people in Iran, not the government, the people of Iran think when they find out that Europe thinks that it's a bad idea to get out of the agreement? That's number one. And number two, you've got Secretary of State Tillerson, Secretary of Defense Mattis, and Chairman Dunford, Joint Chiefs of Staffs, and they all say that the agreement hasn't been violated. So what do you think the people of Iran think when all of a sudden their hardliners are saying, see, those are the United States, they can't keep their word?
I think the people of Iran want freedom. I think the people of Iran would like to cast their ballot and have it respected. I think the people of Iran would like to have a better life than the Ayatollah has given them. Don't ask me, ask them. I'm not the one that went into the streets of Tehran demanding a better life. I'm not the one holding up a sign. Are you with them or are you with us, President Obama? So I know what the people of Iran want. They don't want to live in a religious theocracy where you can't say and do what you believe, that you're restricted by your government in terms of economic opportunity, and that you're no better than the government will allow you to be. I know what they think about their own leadership. Here's what I would tell them about America. We want to be your friend, and I am sorry that we walked away and we weren't there for you. I'm sorry the whole damn world just didn't want a conflict. And when you went out in the streets, Nadia got shot down like a dog, and we just said, okay, we don't want to upset the deal. President Obama basically has let Syria fall apart because he didn't want to upset the Iranians. So to the Iranian people, it breaks my heart that the world walked away from your legitimate demands to have a better country.
All right. Under the agreement now we have inspections.
Right.
And I know there's a controversy about whether we can inspect the military bases. That we've got to give them notice, and obviously there's a lot of suspicion that giving them notice gives them time to do something. If this is decertified ultimately, this deal, we have no inspections. We have nothing. Tell me what happens then. Okay,
so if we withdraw, then we'll tell businesses, if you do business with Iran, you can't use American banks. We will try to get a better deal.
Does sanctions work? You're talking about sanctions. Does sanctions work?
The sanctions did. The only reason we have this deal, I think, is that they were willing to deal because the sanctions did work. So we'll reimpose sanctions, hope we can rally the world around the Ayatollah is a cancer in the Mideast. So what will we do? We'll stop them from getting a bomb. We'll put everything on the table, including using military force. We'll reimpose sanctions, and we'll try to get this regime to behave better. And one day I'd like to actually replace it. One day I would like to see the Iranian people elect their leaders and have somebody that won't shoot them down in the streets.
All right, let me ask you about the Kurdish problem right now. The Kurds, they're the Iraqis. We have funded and helped both the Iraqi military and the Kurdish military, the Peshmerga, and now they're fighting between them. Now what?
Well, you know, I think the Trump administration needs to have a more coherent policy. So ISIL's a symptom of leaving Iraq too soon. All the military commanders said, please leave some residual troops, President Obama. 10,000, I don't think ISIL would have come about, but they did. Now what does the Trump administration do? You got to get back on the ground. You got to have American diplomats and soldiers back on the ground avoiding a conflict between the Baghdad and Erbil. You've got to put Iraq.
How do we do that? Where we've funded both of them, we're friends with both of them, we're caught in the middle.
Well, the Kurds are a part of Iraq. They're not a separate country.
They want to be.
Yeah, but I don't support that. What I want to do is get American influence back. The Iranians are running the show. How do you do that? What do they want from us? They want military equipment, they want military training, and if we go back in, not 100,000 troops, but if we increase our military presence and say we're not going to leave this time, then we'll referee these fights. Kirkuk is a multi-ethnic town. There's been contests between the Arabs and the Kurds for generations, and Iraq was in a pretty good place until we left. Now it's in a terrible place. But you think Iraq's bad? Syria. We take Raqqa back. What happens next? How do you keep Syria from falling apart again if Assad's in power?
So what do you want to do with that?
I want to have a strategy that will replace Assad.
How? President Obama drew that red line. He didn't enforce that red line.
So here's what I would do. I would destroy ISIL. I would have more Arabs.
They're losing real estate.
Yeah.
They're losing real estate.
But how do you hold Raqqa? The Kurds, the YPG Kurds, are a terrorist organization in the eyes of Turkey. They're the main fighters. They are a Marxist communist group. We've put all of our eggs in the basket of a group of people who are not indigenous to that part of Syria, that are hated by Turkey, and really are not respected by the Iraqi Kurds. So what we have to do is change the mix. We got to get more Arabs in the fight so they can hold the town, then train the Free Syrian Forces all over again who want to take Assad down because he's murdered 450,000 members of their family. So Assad is a magnet for radical Sunni extremists. If he's in power, he's a puppet of Iran, and he's a recruiting tool for Al-Qaeda and all these other radical groups. What would I do? I'd declare a safe haven. I would tell the Russians and the Iranians that we're going to protect these people, and if they want to fight along with the other people in the region, we're going to train them. And if they want to go after Assad, we're going to help them.
Kim Jong-un, North Korea. What are we going to do about that?
Not let him get a missile to hit the homeland with a nuclear weapon on top.
And how do we do that?
Convince China it's not in their interest to allow that to happen. And the only way they'll believe that is if Trump can convince China that he will use military force to stop the development of a missile with a nuclear weapon on top that can hit the American homeland. Trump's got to convince the region that he doesn't want a war, but if there's going to be a war, it's going to be over there, not in America.
Do you really believe China has that economic influence? I think that they did before. I think they have lost the economic influence because there are other nations that have been in there.
No, I don't think. I think 90% of the North Korean economy is owned by the Chinese. I don't think North Korea would have one bomb without Chinese help. I think the Chinese could stop this tomorrow if they wanted to. North Korea couldn't survive a week without China's help. China sees North Korea as a benefit. They're not a democracy. They're friendly to China. They're a thorn in our side. Here's what China needs to understand. They're now a liability. We're not trying to bring democracy to North Korea. We're not trying to unify the South Korean North Koreans. We're not trying to reunify the peninsula. We want one thing. We want our homeland protected from a crazy guy who would have a missile to hit us. And here's what I worry about most, Greta, that if he gets one hydrogen bomb, he'll have 50 over time because nobody's going to stop him, and he'll sell it. Here's what I worry the most coming out of North Korea, that whatever they develop in terms of missiles and bombs, they'll sell. What I worry about Iran is they're religiously motivated. And the Ayatollah has a religious view that excludes Israel and Sunni Arabs, and that he is on a religious mission. North Korea is not. They're trying to survive. It's a hermit kingdom with a crazy government, and I don't want them to get a bunch of weapons that they one day will sell.
One last question. If people around the world want to know how's the Trump foreign policy different from the Obama foreign policy, what's the short answer?
We're allowing the military to fight without one hand tied behind their back. We're taking North Korea on directly rather than kicking the can down the road. We're trying to get a better deal with Iran. This is a terrible deal. I think America under Trump's a better friend and a more worthy adversary.
Senator, thank you. Nice to talk to you, sir.